Good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot. Today we are going to discuss India's strategy to tackle Pakistan China collusion in war and peace. This is an important Casa web discussion. And joining me in this web discussion of Casa are very renowned personalities General Gautam Murthy, who's the founder of Casa, General Prakash Menon, who's been the commandant of National Defense College, and General KJ Singh, who's been the Western Army commander. All three of them, all of you who are on Gunner Shot, know them because they've been coming on Gunner Shot often. So I will dispense with the formalities and get on to the subject proper. The subject proper is Pak-China collusivity. Sirs, good evening and thanks for coming on Gunner Shot. Welcome to the platform once again. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. With this, we're going to discuss this Pak-China collusivity in the new framework which we find ourselves in war and in peace, of course. The issues is that all of us have had a framework in which we see the China-Pak collusion has operated. We've all spoken of the two-front war, but a lot of things have changed, right? First and foremost, India is rising. India is not the same India which we started this thinking of two-front war and Pak-China collusion as it existed, say, ever since the past 75 years. The internal situation of Pakistan has changed. It has lost a lot of strategic space in Afghanistan, which it desired. China's economic and internal situation has also changed drastically. Though its ambitions, military and geopolitical, have not changed. The maritime domain has expanded significantly. And today, a lot of talk is going on in the maritime domain, especially with the Pak-China, naval cooperation, which is happening in the North Arabian Sea, along with Iran to some extent, and of course the Houthis and the Red Sea action, which is going on, Somalian piracy and what have you. High tech has come to the fore in a big way. Space, AI, robotics, all this has started impacting global events significantly. Then, of course, the global situation has changed drastically over the past 3 to 4 years, ever since Corona has made its presence, and then the Ukraine war, the Gaza conflict, and everything. In fact, if you put it in context, the Indo-Pacific, the Pacific part is it's more quieter than the Indo part, where the Indo part has literally caught fire. And then, of course, climate changing is bearing down on us significantly. Now, these are the factors under which we have to examine Pak-China collusion in peace and in war. Sirs, what we'll do today is I'll request each of you to weigh in on first the outlines of the China-Pak collusion in peace and how do we handle it. And then we'll get on to the war or the operational situations and how do we handle it. The new paradigms. There's no conformity to what I have said. You might have your own, views about it, and that's what we want because this whole system is changing, and we have to flesh out what's the new system and what should our new responses be. With this as a background and an introduction, I'd first request General Gautam Murthy, sir, your take on this whole affair. Over to you.
Thank you, General Shankar. Good evening, panelists, fellow panelists, and good evening to all your listeners. This is CASA's 50th webinar, and I do not know, as far as General Shankar is concerned, it's probably his 100th. So let me quickly get to the point of what do we actually mean by collusion? What does the word collusion signify? I'm sorry, I'm getting into a bit of detail because collusion is a secret agreement or cooperation for an illegal or deceitful purposes. That is how the dictionary defines it. That means the cooperation between China and Pakistan is characterized by secrecy and deceit. Well, a lot of this linkage is above visible to everybody else, but there's a lot of it which is also there's secretive ties. As you're aware, Beijing has secretive ties with North Korea. It has secretive ties with Russia, and it has been having secretive ties with Islamabad for, I think, decades. In fact, Pakistan was the country that brought the US to China and introduced them formally, and that's how the era of friendship began between the US and China. Now, the reason why they are collusive is obviously India. They have a shared enmity with India. Both opposed the action by India recently in revoking the special status of Jammu and Kashmir. And China has made it very clear that it does not see India's rise as being in its interest. You went into a bit of history, General Shankar. Yes, the Treaty of Shaksgam, when Pakistan parted with over 5,000 square kilometers of our state of Jammu and Kashmir, now, of course, Union Territory of Ladakh. And then their policy is therefore based on my enemy's enemy is my friend. And there is a analyst called Mr. Andrew Small, who has written a book called The China-Pakistan Axis, where he says that Pakistan considers its relationship with China to be the cornerstone of its foreign policy and perhaps the best possible ticket to get out of instability and economic weakness. Therefore, Pakistan wishes to leverage its unique advantage of being a bridgehead between China, South Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, and so on. Both systems, you spoke about peacetime. Please understand, and this is for your viewers, I would like to say what is common between China and Pakistan when we use the word collusion. What is common is both have deep state systems. In Pakistan, you have the army and the ISI, and in China, you have the CCP. And they convey this kind of relationship in platitudes which are slightly laughable phrases like higher than the mountains and sweeter than honey. I mean, this is what I think two young lovers would say to each other. But these phrases intend to convey the substance of the relationship. It is not only mere rhetoric, but if we look at it positively, a relationship, respectful relationship can be based when two people are almost equal, but it cannot be between two unequals, and that also for over 50 years. The other thing affecting China-Pakistan collusion in peacetime is the BRI and CPEC. I think the other panelists will also will be speaking about it, so I will not go into it. But if there is one thing holding China back, it is the fundamentalism and the terrorism that emanates from Pakistan. And China has their own Uyghur problem. So all is not really hunky-dory, may not be as sweet as honey. And we have seen what has happened recently to the Chinese engineers in Pakistan. They also raised, I think General Menon will weigh upon it, about the nuclear bogey. Repeatedly, Pakistan has been raising it. And they look forward to China for support in whatever they do. So this essentially in peacetime, I suppose it covers this collusion in peacetime between Pakistan and China. Thank you, General Shankar.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think you made some very important points. And I think the most important point which you made is that their whole relationship is based on secrecy and deceit. And the other important point which you made, and then I always maintained, that Pakistan has been the midwife of the US China relationship, and it has given birth to all kinds of things. Article 370 affects both countries, right? Or rather, the abrogation of Article 370 affects both countries. And radicalism in Pakistan and their ideology, if it spreads to Xinjiang, has a negative effect on China, and that is a limiting factor in their relationship. And of course, the nuclear collusivity is known all along. So these are the major points which you made. I think they're all very relevant in peacetime. And of course, the enduring nature of this collusion, irrespective of other things, comes out in what you said: higher than the mountain, sweeter than the honey, and things like that. Right. With this, then KJ sir, your take on the whole show, and we'll first focus on the peace aspects, and then we'll get to the war. All yours.
Thank you, Jan Shankar, and thank you, Jal Murthy sir, for setting the groundwork for me to take on. I hope you can hear me because I get some static. It's okay?
That's okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
So,
Very clear.
okay. So, first part is about
If you have any, sir, 1 minute. If you have any mobile or anything on next to you, you might have to put it off.
no, it's off, but let me put it off. Okay.
Yeah.
So, first thing is about the definition itself. See, the definition which is traditional about collusion is based on, an interpretation from your own interests. So it may not be secretive, it may not be deceitful, it may be well cloaked in some kind of explanations. Like what China seeks to do with Pakistan is it tries to give it a cover of development and trying to bring up Pakistan and to sort of have some kind of economic, they want to give it a geo-economic kind of a angle. CPEC is all couched in that. So when we look at this definition of collusion, we may have to look at now a modification that it may not be always secretive, deceitful. It is anchored on national interests. These are the national interests of these two countries. And when we map this thing, we try to start from Sakshgam Valley. But even before Sakshgam Valley, when Fizo and Nagas were traveling Mobu Angami, going to China, then escaping through East Bengal, that time East Pakistan, and Fizo making his way to London through East Pakistan, and some fighters of Naga groups being trained in Karachi. So all that was happening, and somewhere, if not actively, China and Pakistan seemed to be happy with the way Northeast was being put on boil. So in our mapping of their collusion, we may like to go back to that and not limit ourselves to Sakshgam as the first marker. When we go to the broad construct of this collusion, I see it in a model of push and pull. Push to push down India, pull to pull up Pakistan. Because China does not want anybody to compete with them in Asia. And so it has to prop up Pakistan. So if India has to get membership of NSG, then Pakistan should be brought in. Build up the parity narrative between the two. If there is a BRICS, then somehow Pakistan has to be brought in. If SCO, then get Pakistan in. So Security Council, why not Pakistan? The Coffee Club and all that is on. So Chinese model of collusion is basically to push India down and pull up Pakistan. And that's their plan, in my understanding. So the enabling provision of this They were there all along. When in 65, China issued a warning. 71, China kept a little quiet. And we were all taught that basically what will happen is that if there is any problem between India and China, China will tell Pakistan to stay out till it wants it to come in. But Pakistan will want to come in. But if there is a problem between India and Pakistan, China may not enter. China may want to act in a matured manner. This was taught to us in our schools. But that all has changed now. Now there are different forms of collusion in grey zone warfare, and we'll have to map them also. So I also look at some historical evidence which says, not historical really, but this literature which says that Samuel Huntington has pointed out to possibility of collusion between the Cynic civilization and Islamic civilization. They converging in their interests at some points and forming some kind of a collusion. But I am not fully in agreement with this theory, because we are seeing in CPEC the culture of these two is not really matching. Because Chinese want to have pork in every meal, and for Pakistanis it is haram. So how do they work this out? It defies my understanding at this moment. But somewhere Pakistan, because of being a client state, is carrying on. In 2005, China and Pakistan signed a treaty, which is a very enabling kind of a treaty, which combines everything that we are trying to have with USA, like SISMOA, LEMOA, and all that kind, have all got put into this, BECA and all. And this treaty also lays down that nothing will be done which will be detrimental to each other's interests, and you can't have any other relationship beyond this with any other country. So it rules out America getting into that kind of, but America has managed, that we have seen. But there is a treaty like this, which is the framework which we have to take into account. So now coming to the fact that during peacetime, they are very closely involved. Armament manufacture in Pakistan is all China-led. Al-Khalid, before that Al-Zarar, JF-17, all these armaments, the collaboration which takes place in ordnance factories, in aviation complex, Kamra, in missile complex, Tarnawa, all these heavy industries, Takshila, where tanks are made, all this has got a footprint of Norinco and others, which are Chinese companies. And international observers have written, I have read a book which says, it is written by a lady, American lady, who says that comparing Pakistani this defense production setup to Indian defense production setup, she feels that Pakistan is more agile. Pakistan has managed to adapt things better, to clone things better, and to take the Chinese thing to the product stage. And Pakistan has certain kind of footprint in supply of ammunitions and all this. We can't discount it. It is Ukraine, we have seen that. So that capability has come because of China. And they are very thick into this. And today, China is number one arms supplier to Pakistan. It has replaced US. That's for sure. And that also gives Pakistan a great advantage. Imagine all around India, there is Chinese equipment. In Sri Lanka, in Myanmar, in Bangladesh, all this. Even in Afghanistan, there is Russian captured equipment, and Chinese are trying to get this repaired and all. Pakistanis also have a role in this. It gives Pakistan a chance to be present in our neighboring countries and become some kind of a servicing or repairing outlet on behalf of China. So their collusion also extends into this and is dangerous for us. And it is sad that we have not taken up this. We had Russian equipment, similar equipment. We could have also done. We have large number of EME people who are retired, who have this capability. We could have put them there, but due to various reasons, because in Afghanistan also we had regimes like Ashraf Ghani, Hamid Karzai. It was not always against India. So that is something worth looking at. And last bit about CPEC. See, China-Pak economic corridor has been described by international observers like Kristen Fair as colonizing Pakistan economically by China. That's one. Second, she's also said colonizing Pakistan to engorge China. So it's in my perception, it is by China, for China, of China, and Pakistan geographically just happens to. Unfortunately for China, the part of Pakistan which is geographically there is unstable, and that penalty it has to. There's no other way. It has to come to from Kashgar down to Gwadar. You have to come through Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. You have to come through Balochistan, and those are unstable. And this is not now. This thing was going on. This friendship highway and all were there, but then it has got packaged. And today, it's all in interest of China. Pakistan is very limited gains it has got out of it, and all has been lost in corruption. So with this, I think I'll stop here. But for us, the thing is, while China is a primary threat today, Pakistan is a permanent irritant for us. And the presence of Chinese in Pakistan does limit our capacity to even target place, which will come later in military thing. Because if Chinese engineers are present in parts of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Pakistan occupied Kashmir, then targeting those areas is not easy for us. Because do we want to take the war to China? So this collusion has very serious ramifications for us. Thank you, Jalshankar.
Oh, thanks a lot, sir. I think you brought out some very interesting points. The things which I found very interesting is the concept of push India down and pull up Pakistan, the push-pull relationship, which I think is important. And you made a mention of the China-Pak relationship operating more in the gray zone, right? And I'll extend it into the salami slicing arena also, because gray zone salami slicing are next door neighbors, right? Yeah, the tension in the China-Pak relationship which you brought out as per the Huntington theory is evident. The difference between the Islamic and the Sinic civilization, as much as they want to collude, there are inbuilt tensions in them which have come to the fore, something which gives us some scope to think of, right? The major thing which you have brought out, which I think is fundamental in this whole story, is that in the new paradigm, the West is no more giving arms to Pakistan. So Pakistan is completely dependent on China. And as a result, the Chinese armament industry has extended extensively into Pakistan, and from there it is now jumping to all other countries which have the erstwhile Russian equipment. Okay. And you made a very important point that Pakistan might well become the MRO hub for all these countries which have the old T-55s and that kind of vintage of tanks. It is not only here, it's also in the Middle East, and it's also in the African area where Russian equipment is there. Because Russia is not able to service them. Right, and many of the countries have come to us. For some reason, we have not been able to respond positively to these. And this, I think, is a major lesson which you actually brought out. I have been of the opinion that if you want military diplomacy to function and you want dependencies to develop, this was the opportunity. We seem to be losing it in some manner, and I think those who watch this video should take this home, right? The growth of and then the defense industry capability, where we are lagging vis-a-vis Pakistan. Pakistan has been agile always in this capability, and it gives us a lot of pointers as to how we need to speed up our defense industrial capability. Okay, and the interesting thing which you spoke of, CPEC, there's nothing left in Pakistan for it. It is for China, it is of China, and it is by China. It's a completely China-oriented exercise. The silver lining in this for us is that it is in a completely unstable area. How this will pan out is interesting, and it opens up a lot of options, right? And China being the primary enemy and Pakistan being the permanent irritant is again a nice catchphrase which I will take home. With this, Zil Menon sir, your take on this whole issue of Pak-China collusion and in peace. Can't hear
So
you.
you're muted.
Thank you, Shankar, and very interesting points made by Gautam and KJ. Let me first, and I will just talk, I'll make one general point, and I want to make 3 more points within the time that is available. The general point is that I think we should understand the nature of this relationship between China and Pakistan. And the essential nature of the relationship is about Pakistan being essentially a tributary state of China. The China, it's a sort of client relationship. This is the nature. Pakistan might want many things from China, but China will only give it what it wants to give it for the purpose that it wants to. And therefore, we need to first look at the point, which is that from this nature of this relationship, why is China interested in using Pakistan? And it has been using it for not now, for several decades. And it is the power of geography, of where Pakistan is located at the confluence of South, West Asia, and Central Asia, and the access that it can give to China to the Indian Ocean. This is the power of geography which Pakistan has sought to leverage, and China definitely has welcomed it. But if you want to look at this collusive relationship, we need to understand this relationship within the larger global geopolitical context. Today, if you want to look at this relationship, we got to see it within the context of the larger geopolitical struggle between China and the USA and its various other, you can say, dominions. And this has made Pakistan very important for China than it was in earlier times, when the geopolitical contestation or confrontation was not as deepened as it is now. From that point of view, Pakistan has gained in importance to China. And before that contestation got deeper, China in any case viewed India and has been trying its best and continues to do so to contain India within the subcontinent. And it has used Pakistan as its cat's paw to do that, like it's actually doing, attempting with all other countries in the world. And why does it want to contain India? Fundamentally, it's based on its larger geopolitical competition with the USA, because India has the heft, the size, and the strength to make a difference if it ever shifts weight to any side. I think if we don't understand this geopolitical dynamics, then this issue of collusivity and how it is being played out cannot be seen for what it is. Because as time goes by, the contours are also changing because there are internal dynamics within the countries, within India, within China, within Pakistan, which is also changing. And as the Shankar and other speakers have brought about, the Chinese economic growth has weakened. Pakistan is in doldrums in many ways. It's lost its strategic backyard or the control it had in Afghanistan. So when you look at it overall, this collusivity which we talk about will wax and wane depending upon which is the context at stake. Right now, and in peace, the context at stake is in the arena of diplomacy and international cooperation. And that is why China would like to bring Pakistan, as KJ has already said, into all these groupings. It gives it all the support, even when there is a terrorist charge against them. It provides it the protection of the United Nations because it is a Security Council member. It watches its back. And it has been doing this for a long time. This is the nature of the cooperation which has been taking place continuously, not now, for quite some time. And it is likely to continue. And China is not doing it because it loves Pakistan more than any other country, because it is useful for it to do so, because it meets their interests. And the third point is that the cooperation in peace between China and Pakistan is not only about CPEC and so on, but we also have a very strong element in which most of Pakistan's military platforms are now sourced from China. And of course, it's also given it a lot of help clandestinely, of course, to develop even its nuclear weapons and the arsenal which it now touts as belonging to it. But much of it has come from China. So there is this cooperation which is taking place in the armament, which has been very effective. They have actually a lot of joint ventures are in place, fighter aircrafts and so on. They're even exporting it. So that's one part. The other one, in the peacetime one, is about how China wants to use the geography of Pakistan, and CPEC is the clearest example of that geopolitical thinking and Gwadar, developing Gwadar port, to get access to the Indian Ocean. And that is what is running into trouble. And as we can see, the latest one of the killing of the Chinese engineers has been certainly provoked China to actually rethink. In fact, if you look at most of these projects, they are being reeled back. And therefore, the internal conditions of Pakistan is making the peacetime creation of power, of connectivity, which eventually will be expressed in power, that much more difficult. So it's being retarded. And since I've got only 30 seconds left, I think that this cooperation, both will try. It's going to run in more difficult waters. But if the interests of both are threatened for whatever reason, or if they find that there is a conjoined interest, both degree of collusivity can increase. If the interests do not converge, then things may not work out the manner in which collusion is supposed to produce. On that note, thank you, General Shankar.
Thanks a lot, sir. I think you made also very important points, a little different from others. I mean, in the sense, all of you have made in your own way different points. I'm highlighting the major ones. The power of geography, where Pakistan is leveraging its power of location and geographic location, and China wants to access that to get a freeway into the Indian Ocean, so that it ultimately gets an access to two oceans, the Pacific and the Indian. And unless it gets the access to two oceans, it doesn't have a chance in hell to being a superpower, right? But then the problem here, as I see it, there's a issue of revenge of geography also. Geography is not so great that it can have a free run with Pakistan. Okay. Then the prime requirements of why China has converted Pakistan into a tributary state of its own is that twofold reason which you said: geographic outreach and extension of its interests not only into the warmer climes of the Indian Ocean, but also it gives a reach into the Central Asian region and the Gulf, and thereafter a shortcut into the North African area. So there's a first part, and then of course their common interests against India. These two override most of the things, and it is in this convergence of interests that you know they are prepared to overcome whatever tensions they have. And of course, the third thing which is emerging, if I may say, is how they can upstage the Western world in this entire dealing. And dare say Pakistan today might not have the wherewithal to play a role in the Middle East and the West Asian politics. But if Pakistan revives, and if China makes Pakistan revive, its value goes up, and its leverage in the West Asian politics goes up, as also in the Central Asian politics goes up, which gives greater credence to Chinese ambitions of a Sino-centric world order. And of course, the traditional thing is China wants to contain India using Pakistan as a cat's paw. As far as the armaments is concerned, I agree with what General Prakash Menon and General KJ Singh both have brought out. An added dimension to this, I would like to say, is it is not only the arming of the Pakistan Army, Navy, and the Air Force, which is ongoing, but it's also the training which is there. The deeper training cooperation is something which we have to really focus on, especially if you look at the Sea Guardian exercises. The last one was held in November, December. The scope has been increasing, and the scope has been increasing not only in the number of navies which are participating, it is also in the number of ships which are participating, is also in the number of navies which are participating. And so to that extent, one has to take note of it, especially since the maritime front, we have stakes there with 10 to 12 ships already there, and I don't see this coming out. Right. We've got a fair idea of what the overall Pak-China collusivity will come up in peacetime, and which we have to contend 24/7, 365 days hereafter. Right. The second stage and the second aspect of our discussion is about operations and war. We've always felt that in case of a conventional war, we will be confronted with a two-front situation. And in areas of less than a conventional war, there will be enhanced operational collusivity, whether it's in intelligence, reconnaissance, or in gray zone activities. Oh, it is there. And is this changing, or do we go by the old concept? Is the question which the Indian defense thinkers have to really ponder on. So with this, sir, then Gautam Murthy, sir, your take on this whole story in operational and war conditions. What do we expect hereafter?
Thank you. You see, both Pakistan and China have lent support to insurgency movements in parts of India for many, many years now. To the northeast, to the insurgents in Central Asia, we are aware of the so-called Khalistani movement. We are very well aware of J&K, what Pakistan has done. And China, in its own way, has also lent support to Pakistan in this. So they have managed to create an environment of insecurity in India, though the government and the armed forces, and when I say the armed forces, I don't only mean the military, the entire forces of the country have been battling it and battling it quite successfully, so to speak. Uh, so, as far as a conventional war that you mentioned, General Shankar, this two front threat has been acknowledged by all Indian military commanders from recollect in September 2020, General Bipin Rawat, at that time CDS, God bless his soul, he has acknowledged this openly in a press conference, and he has mentioned that this means that we have to have high levels of preparation. And this poses a threat of coordinated action along the northern and western fronts, which we have to consider in our defense planning. Uh, so the two front threat is a viable threat, but at the same time, we must look at what interests China has in Pakistan. Overall, it wants to preserve it as a viable military competitor, and that we have covered about its use of Pakistan towards for Gwadar and for its own economy. But it is also looking at Pakistan for support in, if required, in quelling their own Uyghur insurgency. They're looking not support in the sense of a military sense, but at least to sever the links between them and the Islamists in Pakistan to that extent. Now, we all know Pakistan has been a staunch supporter of China in all fora, from the United Nations to the OIC. Yet, one thing that we need to understand is, why does China not therefore sign an alliance with Pakistan? What message is it sending? Why is it not making a binding commitment to Pakistan? General Menon just said it has started reeling in some of the projects. It's going slow on some projects, and some projects have come to a halt. China cannot afford to see hand Chinese body bags getting in. So the collusivity that we talk about, the two-front war we talk about, and we brought it out very clearly, General KJ Singh, about Pakistan coming to China's aid in some manner, but China not coming to Pakistan's aid. I think that was a very, very important point that you brought out. I would like to add another issue here. What is this collusivity? All right, with India we are discussing. I'd like to take this discussion a little further and say, how will this collusivity play out if the United States also gets involved? Let us think about that. Is Pakistan a reliable ally for China? As far as India is concerned, you may have a yes or a maybe answer, but when you get the US involved, will Pakistan be a reliable ally? And the answer, I say, is no. Even though it is a vassal state, even though it is a rentier state, you could say what you want, but I think Pakistan will have to tread a very, very fine balance there. So I would say that there is a bitter truth in this for the Pakistanis. No matter how good the relationship, there is still a measure of trust deficit in this relationship. And you cannot hold grudge the Chinese from holding back, because Pakistan is an unstable country. They are seeing it day and day. They give lip service support, but everybody knows what is behind the relationship, which organization is behind the relationship, who is the puppeteer and who the puppets. So in sum, what I would say is Pakistan is at best a tool in the Chinese grand strategy of, trying to become a world superpower, so and so. But by creating a dependence in perpetuity, by way of land, unplayable loans, infrastructure, development, armament industry, weapon spares, everything, Pakistan is totally subservient and beholden to China. But I'm afraid if the US comes into the picture, it is not going to be the same. Thank you, General Shankar. That's all I have to say.
Thanks a lot, sir. You brought up an interesting, equation here. Yeah, the two-front theory is something which we all know, and that is what we have to really examine. The standard two-front theory is there in the north and western areas. It will happen, and that's what we've all been taught. It's not only General Bipin Rawat. Even much before that, we've been
Yes.
speaking to this two-front, threat. But having said that, what you have said is pretty important. The problem of radical Islam spreading into Xinjiang and affecting or hyphenating into the Uyghur insurgency holds China back from a full commitment. There's no denying on that. It's worried. And that is why it is investing in Afghanistan also. It is not investing in Afghanistan to take minerals out, because with the minerals, militancy will go into that area. It is virtually the Afghanis or the Afghan Taliban are holding China to ransom. And something similar is happening in Pakistan also. Because otherwise it will just spread. Okay. Uh, then the issue, which interesting thing is, why no alliance? So many treaties, sweeter than honey and deeper than ocean relationship. Why is it not an alliance? The issue of China is not hereafter willing to accept body bags, especially for people if there's a war in this area. And traditionally, we've always believed if there's a problem between Pakistan and India, China will play the elder statesman. Is that acceptable for Pakistan? That itself questions the traditional wisdom that if there's a problem between India and China, Pakistan will jump in. Why would Pakistan do that? And especially when USA has started regaining footing in Pakistan. After all these drones which are flying over Afghanistan are flying somewhere from Pakistan, not in Afghanistan. And as far as US is there, and as far as US has still got its claws into Pakistan, so this collusivity one, is itself in operations is under question mark. But you can't rule it out. The issue is one, we have to judge as to what is this level of collusivity which will come about. But these are the issues which you brought out, and I leave it at that. We'll get General KJ Singh. Sir, you dealt with it practically as an army commander. You would have made an assessment of all this, and you would have a clearer thing. And now project it into this in this setting where things have changed. After all, in the past 6-7 years, since we've retired, a lot of things have changed. But as much as things have changed, some things have not changed also. And you handled both the fronts. The Western Command also handles the Tibet front to some extent. So your views on this whole story?
See, firstly, let me start by a construct which was given by Vijay Gokhale, who's an acknowledged expert, and he says that China, when it looks at India, looks at it in a trilateral format, which is USA, Russia, and China, and India is nowhere there. It tends to believe India is unreliable, unequal, unworthy of any standalone consideration. This is traditional Chinese thought. It would have got tempered down, but this is what China would aspire to do. So, but the problem is, after the Ukrainian war and that foray in Ladakh and the kind of deployment we have done, China has jolly well understood that kinetic force application has limitations. It will not get you decisive results. We did Kailash, and we proved it to them that we can also put it across. So if that be so, in my perception, China would not like to start any kinetic action to grab or do any capture of Arunachal or any such thing. It will try salami slicing and all that kind of thing it will do. It could, but today it knows that India is well deployed, it is balanced, it's got reserves, and it has forced costs on China. China's also have to see. China before this, when I was a Sikkim Corps commander, used to be like a dada, come sometime, create a problem, go away, then create it in some other place. Today it's physically got held to the ground. But China in this is putting asymmetric costs. It is this to maintaining these many troops over there places heavy cost on this. And that may be also part of Chinese aim or whatever it is. But in my perception, collusion is going to extend into non-traditional domains. That is cyber and space. Pakistan is not capable of, but cyber definitely. Pakistan has also got certain kind of capability in cyber targeting. China is past masters, and they would be increasingly colluding more in this thing. Because see, after all, when Yangtze happened, Americans gave us intelligence. So will China provide intelligence to Pakistan? It must be doing, it will do. And by physical presence of Chinese assets, it does impose limitation on us. Let me give you an example. There was a base of Shamshi, air base of Shamshi, which was given to UAE for hunting of bustards and all those things. UAE subleased it to Americans. Americans installed the drones and all that, which were utilized to target Afghan assets. It was a round tripping, strategic round tripping done by Americans like this through UAE. But when post this 26/11 in Mumbai, when we had to think of, I will not like to go because I was not in a position where I was involved, but I am sure that any right-thinking person would not have wanted to go and target Shamshi, where Americans were there, and Jacobabad, where they were. So similarly, when Chinese come and sit at some places in Pakistan, will it limit us? Will we want to go and enlarge the war over there? The question. And China is a past master. China is rolling out all these things. See, Pakistan doesn't need any more ports. It has got KT Bandar, it has got Karachi, it has got Port Bin Qasim, it has got Ormara, Jiwani, Pasni. All ports are there. It doesn't need any other port. But they've created one for themselves. And they're also going to make an airport. They are creating assets in Tajikistan. It is well known. They're calling it a police station. But when that police station becomes something bigger, we don't know. Chinese have interest in Chabar. They are creating, they have got one berth to be developed, and they have actually outsmarted us. Chinese are making rail and all those over there. And what India thought, Haji Kak and all those mines, China has moved. So let me come back to the main theme in operations. Body bags and other issues. China is not going to get kinetically involved, but cyber, cognitive, though we have read in papers 3 days back, Microsoft has warned that Chinese will try to influence Indian elections. And the interesting story is that Canada is saying India influenced elections, India and Pakistan. And India is saying Canada influenced the election. And Americans are saying Russians tried to influence. So all these countries today cognitively are in a soup with each other. And it will happen to us also increasingly. And like in CPEC, 2 divisions have been raised, light divisions. They have dual capabilities. You can employ them. Like we work on employing RR. Lot of assets have been created, like frontier constabulary, like what Jan Shankar was saying, Sea Guardian. Pakistan has been given marine crafts and all this out of CPEC money. all those assets have dual use. They can be applied against them in certain kind of. See, Pakistan, because of its limitations of navy, is not going to exercise any sea control or something. It wants to do sea denial. So, for doing sea denial, it can use these assets very well, and it will like to link up with Chinese bases which are coming up in, which has come up in Djibouti. Some talk of Seychelles also. All that, and then Maldives now. So, Gwadar, why not? Can possibly, it can be used for that. And before I conclude, I would like to share some interesting thing, because one Chinese Southern Army commander, he made a remark. He told his officers that, see, Chinese are Chinese first, businessmen next, and then iron honey brothers to us thereafter. So you as Pakistanis, please try to be Pakistanis first, and don't forget in exuberance that China is a very smart country. Pakistanis are slowly beginning to realize it. How much will happen, I don't know. But coming to the very last point, as the Western Army commander or as a Sikkim Corps commander, as a Sikkim Corps commander, there is no Pakistan there, except for maybe fomenting some trouble in certain areas of West Bengal, Malda, and all. But China has definite aim to come to Siliguri corridor. It's a one plus this little Pakistani mischief, which is very much evident over there, and Chumbi Valley, and that is a threat for us. When it comes to this side, to the western borders, western front, then I would still tend to believe that China will not kinetically apply force, but will position assets, will apply cyber, will give intelligence to Pakistan, and may also encourage Pakistan by giving them weapons, munitions, and all this, and tell them that if they want to do some local action somewhere, it will support them. So those threats are very, like I said, China is a primary threat, Pakistan is a permanent irritant. We can't let our guard down on either of them.
Right. Thanks, sir. That was a very interesting way you put it. I completely agree with your first thing that China sees USA, Russia, and itself as the primary global triangle, and this has been their traditional thought, not from now. It has been what Mao said in his Red Book long back, and in that India doesn't figure anywhere. That's the thing. The second thing which you said is that, which I think is very important, the chances of a kinetic collusion between is very less, because the whole idea of a kinetic war, full scale kinetic war between India and China or between India and Pakistan are receding by the day. And like you rightly said, there are people questioning why is China sitting there for the past 4 years without any resolution to the whole border. After all, as much as the costs which are being imposed on us asymmetrically by maintaining 50,000 or 60,000 troops there, the same thing is happening to China also. And today, there's a report, interesting report from Nepal, which says those people are struggling with oxygen. Their their facilities, if you see that, there is a cost which they're paying. Okay, and they've been held on ground, which is very important, which you put out. And in this kind of a thing where only salami slicing or minor nibbling can take place, what amount of collusion can take place is a big question mark conventionally. And of course, it also limits the Chinese presence in Gilgit-Baltistan, खास करके, especially in the Daimar Basha area where the dam is being built and all that, limits our options against Pakistan severely. So when people say, oh, go take tomorrow's Gilgit-Baltistan, there is a big angle, Chinese angle to it. I'm not saying we will, but if someone gets that imagination, you have to think. So a lot of collusion will be in non-traditional areas like cyber, IW, and cognitive warfare. and logistics. And logistics is one thing which is, we have to focus on. And this logistics need not be wartime logistics. It could be logistics built over a longer time. The major thing which you have also brought out, like you have built upon what I've said, is the maritime domain is expanding. The collusion will be more active in the maritime domain, right? And that is something which we have to really think of. And with Gwadar coming up, Gwadar might not give a land route through the Kunjara Pass across into that area. That I don't see it happening, uh, at least in the next 20, 30 years. But Gwadar becoming another major base for China in this area is something of consequence. That is where the future is. Because Djibouti doesn't give them that much base facilities, because next 3 kilometers away from the Chinese base is the American base, on the other side is the French base. So it's more of a port of call where they can just go and hang around, and not much can be done. But Gwadar has a different implication altogether. The interesting thing which you made out is this collusivity which will appear in the northeast, especially in the Chumbi Valley area and in the Siliguri corridor, where there is a large influx of Bangladesh happening, where trouble can stir up. And if there is any movement down south from Chumbi Valley, I mentioned this specifically because I remember during Op Vijay, when I was deployed in the northeast, and we were to move out from this very Siliguri corridor to the northern area. There was a lot of activity there. In fact, we had a lot of bomb blasts and everything, which impeded our mobilization to the west. So, and that would have only increased with time. I'm talking about time during Op Vijay 99. So things would have increased with time. So that is something which we have to look out for. Right. So, General Menon, sir, your take on this as to how this thing will pan out in operational and conventional operations, sir. All yours.
Thank you. Actually, I agree with quite a lot what General KJ said, but I think I'll make just a couple of points. The first thing is we have to connect the use of military force to political objectives. And when you actually look at this particular connection, it is evident that the China is not thinking of invading India and coming across the Himalayas, capturing large parts of our territory. That is not the type of war which China is, because that is not its political objective. Its political objective, and that's a personal view, is about sucking up India's resources into the northern border. So that, and of course, it comes a cost to them, but they are probably be willing to pay that cost. So, in terms of war, when we talk, and don't forget, all three are nuclear powers. So, the type of war which can be waged will also have to be kept in mind. And so, there is no connection in a Sino-Indian war to the larger war which we are talking about, because India and China is not the problem which China has. China has much larger problems. Wouldn't like to get involved in any big war with India, because that is not the fight which is actually it is doing. It is about a larger global geopolitical competition which is on its western seaboard, in the South China Seas, East Asia, and so on, with the United States and the other countries in that region. And of course, Taiwan is another issue. So, when we talk about this collusion, the strategic imagination is one. Both are going to now launch attack on India, and that will be very this thing. Well, they always can, because nothing can be ruled out. But if you connect the political objectives of China, and now we'll come to Pakistan, you'll find that this is just a threat imagination which needs to be sort of harnessed by connecting the use of force to political objectives. As far as Pakistan is concerned, Pakistan is in no position to launch any major war against us, but it will do, and it can do, what it always has been doing, which is the use of terrorism as a tool for its furtherance of its foreign policy. Even there, it's got its limitations, because it's now got another front which is actually opened up. But that does not mean that they will not fish in troubled waters. And depending upon India's domestic situations, we can expect. And the war with Pakistan, the most likely war with Pakistan, remains the fact that India would react to any terrorist attack on us, would react in a manner that probably can escalate. And that would be a matter of judgment. And as far as this KJ's point about Chinese, actually, we are not being able to target, since if this is the type of war we are talking about, if this is the type of energy exchange we are talking about between Pakistan, Chinese can't be sitting everywhere. I'm sure there are enough targets within uh, 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 Pakistan, and I don't think that needs to hold our hand. The Chinese cannot be in so many places that we can still hit Pakistan and many. I mean, it's big enough for all that. And the last point I want to make is, you see, if Pakistan and China are in actually in and this issue about alliance. The thing about alliance, Pakistan will know, because then Pakistan will have to find China's was also. An alliance means that's what the word in political science it means. So I don't think Pakistan would want to get so the thing about it is Pakistan and China will act in collusion against India if they are able to do it and influence one influence either what China can do something in the northern border just because Pakistan is under some threat from us. It can always do. Pakistan can create some problem which because we will draw our resources toward that. So that's about the thing which we've done. Of course, for planners, it's not so simple. For planning, cannot rest on the assumptions which I am just stating, because planners will have to actually plan up to some level of war which they have to envisage, because only then deterrence can be strengthened. So between the planners and the practitioners, the planners have to produce, the practitioners has to make sure that all the implements which the planners have produced should not be used, because eventually it will have to be under the shadow of under the nuclear shadow. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think you brought a new dimension to what we have been speaking so far. And uh, right, yeah, one issue, and that is, can you hear?
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
okay,
can hear.
yeah. So the important dimension in this entire thing is the political dimensions are ultimately are political by nature. And any war which China undertakes has to have a political objective. And how much of that political objectives it'll achieve by undertaking a kinetic mission is open to question, especially after their experience in Eastern Ladakh and what China is experiencing in the South China Sea. One finds, 2, 3 years back, one thought that China will be overtly militarily aggressive all over the country, and it will be a matter of time when they'll start conquering all places. But post the Ukraine war and the Israel-Gaza conflict, and their own experience in 2020 Eastern Ladakh intrusions, I think China has realized that it's not going to be easy to prosecute a kinetic war, especially against a country like India, which, like Tony Kajasik and the Prakashman have thought out. So it's going to be more politics. And for that political objectives, what can it do? And basically, it will be to contain India. The interesting thing is this collusivity in the normal day-to-day way of thinking, you're going to have China coming conventionally at us, whereas Pakistan will come asymmetrically using terror as a tool. So this is something which we'll have to factor in. Of course, alliance is ruled out because Pakistan will never fight China's wars. I mean, to put it very bluntly, Pakistan is not in a position to fight its own wars. What will it fight China's wars? Yeah, the point, sir, which you have made and which all of us do agree is that for a planner, he can't go on this premise that a two-front war will not happen. A certain amount of kinetic war has to be planned for. So it is not that it is out of question completely or out of equation completely. Certain amount of planning will have to be done. The probability of that plan crystallizing or rolling out on ground is something which is open to question. I'd like to leave everyone with one thought before I take questions. It was during the Eastern Ladakh intrusions when there was a lot of talk of China readjusting its forces and maybe mobilization likely to happen and all that. I saw a tweet by one senior Pakistani officer who said, "Look, when we were in trouble in 65, where we were in trouble in 71, and also in Kargil, when we were getting hammered, China didn't do anything for us. If today China is facing off with Indian army and is not able to make a headway, it is learning its own lessons. It's its war. Why should we go and fight for it?" And the thing which he mentioned is there are no free lunches for anyone. Why should we give one to China? And this was at the height of this. Somehow that quote didn't catch too much traction. Probably it was subdued and kept under the wraps. But this is also a truism which we have to factor in. And last but not the least, the idea that Pakistan and China will collude and there'll be a major war, like something like equivalent of a third world war where India will be fighting on two fronts, is largely imaginary, good for planning, good for discussion, but in practice might not happen. Sir, if this is what we've all had to say, with your permission, unless any one of you want to add something else, I'll take a few questions.
I'd like to add just a couple of points, which is actually how should India counter this strategy? I won't take more than a minute.
Yeah, please go ahead.
You see, what should India be doing? Whether this is likely to take place or not, as planners. I think we are all in agreement to say that we must continue with our capacity building and developing our capability, especially along the line of actual control, and more importantly, the Indian Navy. We have to take, with the help of the US, you have to shift the focus into the Pacific and away from the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. Because Pakistan-China military cooperation has its own limitations, we must need to understand that. General Menon, more than anyone else, will agree with me that we must continue to strengthen our nuclear deterrence, and especially with the delivery systems like we have indicated recently. So, and last but not least, I would like to say that we need to leverage Afghanistan's insecurities with Pakistan. That Pakistan was looking for strategic depth, they have realized it has been a chimera. There is no strategic depth. They have brought war into their own country by playing with fire. This is what we need to leverage in thought, please, so that they understand that they are playing on a very, very sticky wicket. As far as I'm concerned, this should be our strategy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. A few words from you also, sir, on this, General KJ, sir. And we'll follow it up and then we'll take questions.
Basically, I would tend to agree that as planners, we cannot be letting any sort of relaxation on building up our infrastructure. We have to, there is no choice. We have to modernize our armed forces. We have to go beyond this 2% cap which we have put on GDP, or even below 2% that we are doing. Lot of procurement we are doing is, I call it effect-based procurement. You're generating effects. that we got few BrahMos, we did this, but we would have to take a serious audit of our capabilities. It has to be a holistic development. So that we'll have to do. And China has created dependencies. How we unshackle ourselves is not easy. It's a long-term project. Uh, Atmanirbharta is a wonderful initiative, but to take it forward requires actual work, hell of a lot of work. It's not going to happen easily because any engine that you take, engine from BrahMos, engine for our ships, engine for tanks, engine for aircrafts, they're all sourced from outside. And so all that technology has to be developed in-house, or some methods have to be found that we develop some technologies which serve as counter to that. I would tend to believe that while there is no possibility of a very major war, but we can't let our guard down. We'll have to keep preparing. And it'll be very nice for us if we can do conflict resolution within India. A lot of insurgencies that are simmering should be brought to, because there is this old saying, insurgency is not over till it is actually over. So if we can find resolution in J&K, Northeast, then we will develop that inherent strength to be able to put it across to these people that this is our strength. I also tend to believe that a lot of our initiatives get stalled. So I would personally, though this may not sound little out of place, but things like creating theatre commands and all, we should take it forward. We can't wait. We can't allow this to slip. And we may not come to a perfect model, but like to fight China, we need to have an architecture. And that architecture is based on theatre commands. Even a simple thing like NDU, we are not able to. So those things we have to work out. And that will convey a seriousness to both people who are trying to collude against.
Then Menon, sir, your take.
I think I'll make only one point. I think the strategic planners and probably even the political leadership needs to move away from its concentration on Pakistan to what is India's real threat, which is China. And even today, if you look at the conversation today, the word Pakistan appeared so many times. Actually, Pakistan is no longer a threat to us. They are doing to themselves, which we need not do anything to them. We don't have to actually get the Taliban, even if we have the leverage to sort out Pakistan. Pakistan is already going wherever. I only hope it doesn't go down and break up, because then though their guys will come here, that is a serious problem for us. That's a different I think what we need to do is to concentrate all our efforts to what is India's real threat in all dimensions, not only military, political, and economic. I think that's a shift we need. Our obsession with Pakistan has to go down. We need to look at China.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, sir. It's not only our obsession with Pakistan at the political or the planning point of view. There's a national obsession, because I'll give you a very simple thing. When I do a program only on China, I get X number of views. When I do a program on Pakistan, I get 2x the kind of views. It's a national obsession with Pakistan. We have this problem. I mean, and all these chaps who are today who are listening to this will also vouch for it, and I feel it. And that's why I do more programs on China than Pakistan, at the cost of not increasing my viewership and all that, because of problem. The major gorilla is sitting across the Himalayas. I'd like to just highlight what General K.J. Singh said, one point only. The point is, we have a great capability, strategic capability, nuclear affairs, missiles, and, space capability. and big ticket items, we have been very successful. Right? That has given us, our planners and our political leaders, a false sense of security, that this will deter our adversaries from doing what they have to do. But unfortunately, the problem with us is that most of our conflicts hereafter are going to happen below that level. We will never need them. In fact, those are going to go out of the way I look at it, those deterrent factors are not going to work anyway. So it is the sub strategic capability, I will call the operational capabilities, which you have to do to prosecute your operational tasks, is more important. Small things like mine clearing, small things like mine clearing, mine laying, water, taking things, energy in the battlefield. If you don't tomorrow have energy in the battlefield, anyway, you can't communicate in Ladakh. You can't have AI. We are talking too many things, so many high things. What about small things? These small bricks are what we are lacking, and we are not able to put in place. And I agree completely with General KJ Singh that our complete procurement system is out of whack to get these small things in time and to get new technologies in time. And that is what we have to do or rethink it. I think it goes beyond just giving 2% uh, allocation on our defense budget. Today we are in a state, I'm very convinced that even if you're given just 2% of your defense budget, 2.1% of our defense budget, we will not be able to spend it. We will not be able to spend it because we don't have the mechanism to spend it. And that is where we have to do in-house thinking. And I'll leave it at that because I can go the whole night on this. I'll take a few questions with this, sir. The first question is, uh, historically, both Pakistan and China have stabbed us in the back. In the present, given their adversarial stance, there can be no normal relations or trade with either of them. Your views, General Menon, sir, the question goes to you.
Okay. Uh, so the point is like this, all relationships are complex and they are dynamic in nature. Over a period of time, they keep changing. And look at India's relationship with China, and that's, I think, is a good example. India's trade relations, in fact, India's trade has increased even after the situation on the northern border has risen, while our political relations continue to get fraught, tense. So here you are, that relationships are layered. So in different domains, you could have India could still cooperate probably with China. I'm just giving you an example on, let's say, nuclear non-proliferation or no first use or something of that sort. We could also cooperate with Pakistan probably on something to do with one of the wars which are there. So it is not that you rule out cooperation. The point at issue is normal relations between our nations are at the moment upset by the various series of events. But those normal relations mean that it is not like, unfortunately, we don't talk so much to China because we don't have a diplomat, a high commissioner is not there. We still talk to China. So here you have a different type of relationship. And remember, our foreign policy is also connected to the forces at play in domestic politics. So if in today's election scenario, to expect that something will change with Pakistan at this point in time is very unlikely. But that doesn't mean that a new government comes to power and then, since Pakistan is also talking about wanting to have trade ties with India, things can change. So the point is, nothing lasts forever, and diplomats are in the business to see how to bring back normality. And the military is in the business to make sure that the military force is not used to change that normality or to reverse it. And that's the business of the military. So I don't think it is an either or.
Yeah, thank you, sir. There's a question which I'll clarify. Major General Rajiv Narayanan recently said in Jaipur dialogue that Pakistan had no role to play in US-China relationships in 70s, contrary to what Lieutenant General Murthy's comment. What is the truth? Let me just clarify it. I don't know what General Narayanan said and what you have understood, but let me put it in context. In 72, it was Pakistan which enabled Henry Kissinger to hop through Pakistan and go to China and set up the meeting later between Nixon and Mao. Right? And that led to the rapprochement between both these countries, and the turnaround in China started there. And China is always beholden to Pakistan because of this, and that is one of the reasons why it will never let Pakistan down. So we just leave it at that. Now the next question, sir, General KJ sir, you might like to take it on. Sir, is there any way, opportunity we can exploit to drive a wedge between these two? How can we leverage social media and grey zone warfare to exploit issues like Uyghurs, PLA attacks, debt trap, and all that?
Firstly, while I am not aware of what is happening, but what makes you believe that we are not doing it? Any sensible country which has such neighbors and such problems should be doing it. So I don't know whether India is doing it or not, but there are various mechanisms. We may not be so agile. Sometimes I joke that the way our social media targets different parties, I wish they could give 50% of that expertise to target our, these enemies. Not enemies, really adversaries. If 50% of that competency was targeted there, we'll have phenomenal results. So government agencies are not so agile, but I wouldn't believe that by India, any country which has got such neighbors and such problems and such, starting from 47 to Moy Mukaddas to 65 to 71 to Kargil and proxy war now and Khalistan in between and Northeast. Why wouldn't we be also doing? So I would not. There is lot of it in media also. I'll not like to add any fire to it, but India has displayed capabilities of striking across. I don't play up to this narrative of unnecessarily saying घुस के मारेंगे. जरूरत होगी तो मारेंगे. I'll say like this. अगर आप provoke करोगे तो मारेंगे. I'll put it like this. So if provoke, our national interests are hurt, India today has the capability. We have demonstrated. So let's leave it at that. In the sense, and I agree to that extent that we should do it more smart. We should. It should not get deniability. Should always be there. Like Israel doesn't go and boast that we have done this. People say, but Mossad never goes and tells people, and raw agents getting caught in some cross-country operations is not good idea of professionalism. Couple of years back, I had read one article in Times magazine that CIA is called, I think, Office or something. There are some names to refer to them, and they said, for an organization with the name like RAW, do they need any other acronym? They are RAW. So I'm not against RAW in any way, but our agencies must be smart. They should not get caught out. Deniability should be there, and our narrative should be better. I'll say it this.
Thank you, sir. This next question is from Pakistan. General Murthy, sir, you could have a go at it. I don't mind if China makes military bases in Pakistan because that will only make Pakistan more secure and stable and more safe for investments. Your take on it, sir?
Yeah, that may make Pakistan more secure and stable, but will it make China more safe and stable? You're already seeing what is happening to the Chinese engineers. And if they try and build military bases there, to my mind, these military bases will act like a flower for bees. a magnet, they will ask for trouble. Why do they need to do it? That's all that I have to say.
Fine, sir. I'll leave it at that. JBJP says, चार जनरल शो को शुरू युद्ध घोषणा ना समझ ले. We are nowhere in that.
हम तो कह रहे हैं लड़ाई होगी ही नहीं.
लड़ाई
साइबर
होगी.
वॉर होगा, कॉग्निटिव
That
होगा.
is our consensus here.
Okay. And okay.
लेकिन sir, I would like to butt in with one point.
Yeah.
Best antidote to war is preparation. So if you show that you are prepared, nobody will trouble.
Yeah.
So we have to be prepared. We have to show it to them that we have all the capabilities. That's why I said honest audit, a correct kind of net assessment and demonstration of our capabilities, and deep down will definitely give a message to our adversary. Don't trouble them.
Yeah. There's an interesting view which has come up. I'd like to put it out. China trying to weaken India will be like killing the chicken laying golden eggs. They can let India prosper to act as a market for what they produce. And I agree with your thinking, but does China think so? Right? Is China doing it? China is doing it in some manner. They're trying to increase trade, and so that the rest of the things are at a back burner. Already they put this strategy in place in some manner. It's only that we are resisting it. So anyone has any view on this particular comment? You could put it.
Are we actually resisting it? Look at our trade with China. It is booming. All your products on Amazon, most of the products that you buy are manufactured in China. You go to any electrical shop to buy anything, it's all made in China. So, to my mind, as General Menon very clearly said, there are different layers to our relationship. While our relationship on the strategic and on the foreign policy and on the defense front is tense, and it's running into headwinds. But on the trade front, the relationship is booming between private entrepreneurs in China and private entrepreneurs in India, with both the governments facilitating trade. So I think that question is answered partially.
Yeah, it is.
Just seeing what is happening.
Okay. So I'll call it at that, sir. We've gone 1.5 hours into the show, and I think we've had some very good ideas as to how this collusion will work out. In peace, it is going to be there, and we might as well contend with it. We need to draw up strategies as to how to deal with both these adversaries of ours. And in war, we've also said that, look, the war might not be so kinetic as we thought. It's more salami slicing, more in the gray zone, maybe more in the dark gray zone, right? And we'll have to also contend with it. The traditional thinking of how collusivity will come out is changing, and we have to start thinking more maritime. And that's the major takeaway from here. That is what all we've had to say, sir. I'd like to thank the entire panel for their valuable ideas. I thought each one of you gave different ideas and a different complexion to this entire story. Because when we start looking at it unidirectionally and unidimensionally, things don't come out. But we had some very interesting ideas coming out, and it gives a lot of ideas for our planners to sink their fingers in and knead the meat. That's all I have to say, sir. If you have any one of you have anything else to say, I'm okay. Otherwise, we'll call it an evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. General Menon, sir. I am looking at the baton you gave us when we did NDP course. And thank you, Gautam Murthy, sir.
Thank you.
I have fond memories of trips that we made with you, sir. And thank you, General Shankar.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Murthy, sir, I would like you to give a short closing remark before we close the whole thing. After all, you are the founder of Casa.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, General Menon, sir. Thank you, General KJ. Thank you, General Shankar, for hosting the show. And on behalf of Casa, I would like to thank all the participants for sparing the valuable time and spending an hour and a half with us on the show. And let us hope that we all learn from each other some more, and India continues to remain a strong, secure, stable nation. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.